Hey everyone, welcome to the weirdest news in history with me, your host, Ben Chasteen. So tonight I'll be talking about number 5. Did you know that Paul McCartney once wrote a screenplay that was going to be a musical about alien lizards trying to take over the human race? Is it a fiction or nonfiction? That's the important question. Number 4, the alien abduction of Antonio Villas Boas is one of the first alien abduction cases in history, along with a detailed description of what happened to him and how he conceived a human hybrid child. And number 3, Yaphet Kotto, who starred in the first Alien movie, first told his own personal alien encounter to Vice magazine in 2017. He said UFOs would always follow him around, and he also believes he was abducted. Hear his story tonight. And number 2, alien abductions are so common that now even an instructor at the University of Oxford in England believes the abductions are real and even has a theory onto why they are happening. Although I don't necessarily agree with this theory, we'll get into that. And number 1, actress Fran Drescher, who starred in the Nanny, also believes that she was not only abducted by aliens, but believes that they implanted a chip inside her. So stay tuned to hear the weirdest news in history, again with me, your host, Ben Chasteen. And joining me, as always, we have Lindsay with us. So, hey, Lindsay.
Hey, Ben.
Good to have you here. Yeah, these are some interesting and some comical stories here, like Paul McCartney's Lizard Alien musical that never was. And why it never was is actually kind of weird, because honestly, as I looked more into this, I was like, dude, this would be so cool. Why didn't he do this? So, now like talks of UFOs and aliens have been all over the news, but ever since Roswell, there's this like alien pop culture, especially like, in the last couple decades, because we see it from everything, movies, songs, books, clothes, even company logos, and of course, alien abduction stories, which we're going to get into. Even John Lennon saw a UFO hovering outside his apartment window and about 100 feet away. And we actually have that in one of our episodes and for Edge of Wonder, we cover like celebrity UFO cases. But anyway, Paul felt like he either needed to up the ante with his own UFO show or got inspired with all the sightings, one or the other. And he began to work on an actual alien musical in the 70s, but unfortunately, it never got off the ground. So there's 2 writers, Alan Kozin and Adrian Sinclair, who unearthed this alien musical gem while researching for the book they were writing called The McCartney Legacy. And you can pull that. That's the book that they wrote. There's the 2 authors. The story is that after the Beatles' success with the 4 films they made, Paul wanted his new band, Wings, to make their own feature film. That's going to be a musical about aliens. The original concept that Paul had, I mean, honestly, it kind of sounds like something from some weed-induced inspired idea that really wasn't very good. It was 5 aliens arrive on Earth, and then they turn into the members of the band Wings and perform pretending to be them and then challenging them into determining who the real band is, which is a really weak story. So we'll get into how it changed into the lizard aliens that take over the human race here in a minute. But here's a part. It says, this is what Paul wrote. A flying saucer lands. Out of it gets 6 creatures. They transmute before your very eyes into us, Wings, like the Wings band. They are here to take over Earth by taking America by storm, and they proceed to this supergroup style. Meanwhile, back in the sticks of Britain lives the original group of Wings whose personalities are being used by these aliens. So, Paul wanted to meet with this super famous sci-fi writer named Isaac Asimov, and who was, especially at the time, very, very, very big, very, very big sci-fi writer. So Paul ended up meeting with him. The ironic thing is that Isaac didn't want to fly. He was afraid of flying. So Paul had to fly to New York to meet with him. Isaac changed the story into this, that a group of wraith-like parasitic alien energy beings that are kind of like cloud form, their planet is dying. And on this planet, there's these like lizard creatures that these, parasitic alien energy being things take over these lizard creatures to survive. But then the lizard creatures are going to die. So they decide to come to Earth and they start taking over human bodies. And this is what's really interesting. So then the story goes that they're incapable of understanding human emotions such as love, and they communicate through like thought waves or telekinesis or telepathically. And that is until they hear music for the first time ever, which would then be the Wings, or the sound of, the Wings music. And then they hear this. They are strangely affected by it and decide that they must use the musical key to unlock human emotions. So Adrian Sinclair, one of the writers who found this, so they found this like going through old notes and stuff of Paul's to like, compile the book. And this is what he said. He's like, Isaac's version was a lot better, and love conquers all tale, which mankind escapes alien conquest and inherits the universe. He said by 1975, Paul completely abandoned the idea, with Isaac saying nothing ever came out of this because Paul McCartney couldn't recognize good stuff. That's what Isaac said. Isaac said that. It's like nothing ever came of this because Paul McCartney couldn't recognize good stuff. Alan Cousin, one of the writers, said, what's interesting is seeing what Paul McCartney's original idea was and how a science fiction master like Isaac would try to improve it. And the fact that McCartney turned it down, like, he's like, what was he thinking? Like, we're talking about Isaac, for God's sake, like the greatest sci-fi writer at the time. And Paul turns it down. And that is why we never got to see this in the theaters. They think it's because Paul just didn't like Isaac completely taking over his idea and completely changing it. And I think he also realized that his idea probably wouldn't go over very well. I mean, the original idea sounds great. Too bad we never really got to see this in action. But maybe in some alternate parallel universe, it's there. Who knows? But anyway, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm like, man, out of all the like crap movies that we tend to get sometimes, it's like this would have been interesting to watch.
What would it be named? What do you think?
The original name was 5 and 5 and 1.
A lizard rock opera.
Yeah, I mean that was the working title that they had for it. That was probably Paul's idea. So yeah. Would you say alien rock opera? That sounds better. Yeah, I mean anything than 5 and 5 and 1. Like, what does that even mean? I guess because they were saying like, I don't even know what they were saying with that title. Anyway, that's all Paul's idea there. So All right, number 4, the alien abduction of Antonio Villas Boas that ended in an extraterrestrial. Anyway, we'll just say the alien abduction of Antonio Villas Boas. This is a really I think I kind of heard of this before, but I don't think Rob and I have ever talked about this on the show. So and this is rated as one of the first cases of alien abductions that's like recorded in recent history, I'll say. So it all started in 1954 when 2 Venezuelan teenagers claimed that they found a UFO in the woods and were only able to escape with their lives after fighting off small hairy aliens, they said. You know, I'm not really sure. It doesn't really go into detail with that because we'll go into Boras' story. But Brazilian journalist Joao Martins interviewed the 2 boys and then published the story. Soon after, I think it was literally a day after he published the story, he was contacted by a 23-year-old man named Antonio Villas Boas, who was a local farmer and said he had his own alien abduction experience. Boas didn't have a lot of money, so Martins paid for Boas' travel expenses to meet with him in Rio de Janeiro. Sorry.
Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah, Rio de Janeiro. Sorry. Martins was very skeptical about Boas' story since it happened the day after he published his story with the 2 boys. So he's like, yeah, okay, you know, but he still met with him anyway. He was like, okay, I'll give this guy a chance, see what he has to say. So Martins wanted a doctor to look at him before they would get into everything else. Boas said he was working with his family in their family field because he was a farmer. And he said he would do it at night because during the day in the summer, it was just way too hot to work on the field. So he said he looked up and described what he saw as a red star hovering over the fields. Then it stopped, and as it lowered, he said he saw an egg-shaped craft with a rotating red light on top of it. When it landed, it extended out 3 legs with 5-foot-tall beings wearing gray overalls and helmets emerged. I think there's some photos of this too that he drew. Yeah, this is what so that's supposedly the shape of the craft. And then and then the being to the left is supposedly these alien beings that came out of the ship. So Boas said, so then as soon as he saw this, he took off running, but they caught up with him and they took him aboard a ship. Boas said they stripped him of his clothes and covered him in some kind of strange gel. He also said the doorway there were like these strange symbols that were written all over it. And he said he was trying to memorize them, and that's what he was drawing. At the bottom left of that, there was these symbols. Then the beings took blood samples on his chin and brought him into a room that had some sort of gas being pumped into it. Boas said it made him violently ill. Then he said, as he was like going through all this, he described a beautiful naked woman who came into the room with long blonde hair and a pointed chin and blue cat-like eyes. Boas said he couldn't help but feeling incredibly sexually attracted, and the 2 actually had sex together. Afterwards, the woman gestured to her stomach, and then he said she pointed upwards. Boas knew that she meant she was going to be pregnant and that she would raise their child in space. Boas said that he then felt a rage of anger, having been treated like a, quote, good stallion by the beings and then cast out. Also, it was like, he realized he was just being used and they just wanted to have this like hybrid child. He was then taken off the ship to watch it ascend to the heavens with an experience no one would believe and feeling hurt and used. So reportedly, Martin and the doctor didn't believe Boas' story, but the doctor did notice a few things. First, Boas had radiation sickness. He was nauseous as well as bruising and burning sensation in the eyes. He said that he had. His skin was also painful to the touch, and that he had small incursions on his chin, meaning like that's where they said they drew the blood. Boas later became a successful lawyer who created models of UFOs from his story in his spare time, and he actually like wrote it all out too. His story was never officially proven, but he swore what he experienced was real, and he never backed down even on his deathbed. So I think he died in the 90s at this point. And even his kids said, he did always said that it was real. And now, like when you kind of look it up on Wikipedia or something, it's like, well, there's no like official evidence to say it's proven to prove it's real. And it's like, it's true. There's no like official stuff, but I think the doctor's report, it's like, where did this guy get radiation sickness from then? If he had it. So strange stuff. And then I don't know, these hybrid, I mean, and we all know like these hybrid experiments are going on with these alien beings. Well, I don't want to say we all know, but I believe that it's really going on. So I think that's why a lot of people get abducted through these, and through stealing your eggs or stealing your sperm, whatever it is, and doing all these weird genetic hybrids, experiments. It's so weird. But all right, let's move on to number 3. Guy killed by alien in Alien now believes he's seen real aliens. So that's the headline from Vice. So Yaphet Kotto, so he starred in the first Alien movie, and he kept this secret for over 50 years until he agreed to do a Vice interview about his alien experiences. Unfortunately, he did die in 2021, but his wife never did disclose how he died. So he gave this interview in 2017 and 2021. He died. So Kotto said it all started when he was around 9 years old. He told Vice, quote, "I remember being told I couldn't go outside. So I was looking out the streets of Bronx, New York, watching the kids play stickball in a kneeling position. When I turned around, a figure was behind me. It was at least 5 or 6 feet tall with an elongated head. It appeared, then jumped to the back of me and disappeared. From that moment on, it was one experience after another, which culminated into my sighting in the Philippines and during the filming of Alien." Of course, the Vice reporter at this point was having a hard time believing him and asked him a series of questions and even asked him if he had a history of mental illness. I mean, honestly, I think that's a little bit rude. I mean, like someone opens up after 50 years and you ask the person if they are insane, especially an actor like that. And no wonder Vice filed for bankruptcy, right? But anyway, I mean, they get a little softer and they let him at least tell his whole story. So Kotto goes on to say, quote, "I remember being at my home at 6 p.m. and I went into my office to meditate in the garage and I saw something. Looked at it for about 5 minutes and it was light. I was wondering why the neighbors were shining a light through the top of my garage window. So I went to talk to them. Now, keep in mind, I had been sitting in that car garage for some 12 hours, and I believed that I contributed to those things that were flying above my garage. I shouldn't call them things." He's like referring to them as like aircrafts. "As I got older, I understood what they were, but I went through my youth not knowing what I was experiencing, and I didn't want to talk about it. I would just experience something and file it away until something larger happened. This this is the thing other UFO witnesses don't talk about. Every time I moved into a new house, above it at some point, there would be circles of what looked like smoke. Those like ring smoke circles that we constantly see. Lindsay, you could probably pull this up, type in like UFO ring smoke circles and you'll see them right away. He kept seeing these things. He said, I would wonder where it came from because it sure as hell didn't look like clouds, and they don't look like clouds. Yeah, these things. Um, those sightings continued for a good 10 to 15 years. Yeah, this is another one. It almost looks like something from that movie, Arrival. And then he said, I've had time loss where I was for the hours between when I saw some of these things. Was I taken? Because I have some big time loss between some of those moments. So he does believe that he was abducted, and he explains that. Then Vice asked him what the larger thing was that happened. And he said, it was one evening in my office in the Philippines. I heard my wife and the waiters calling me to come outside in a very anxious voices. So I went out, and when I got there, I saw the same huge circle of smoke over the house. When I asked them what they saw, they said they saw a UFO as big as the Yankee Stadium turned upside down, and they were all freaking out. That is massive. The Yankee Stadium, like I'm not really sure how big that stadium is, but I mean that's got to be at least like 3 football fields wide. 2 or 3 nights later, I saw it. The thing blotted out the entire sky, the moon, and everything. What the heck? It was huge. I got nervous, man, because you don't see something like that without being vulnerable to becoming psychologically blown away. You get scared, to put it quite frankly. That messed me up for a good 3 or 4 days. I'm surprised it's only 3 or 4 days. I mean, can you imagine seeing something like that in the sky? Like how did anyone miss this? I mean, I think that's a lot of questions that people ask. But again, I think this is in the Philippines when he saw. Yeah, he says he was in the Philippines. So I mean, there's a lot of weird things that do happen, especially in Thailand and the Philippines, that don't really get reported in Western media. So Vice then asked why he was made so special, like why he felt that he was special. And he said, I don't know. I'm getting to believe I'm special because I've seen these things many times. I mean, we've had them follow us around, showing up in places where I am. At one point, I was getting ready to run with my assistant in the morning around or in the Philippines, got up, went outside, and we hadn't gone very far when one of those aircraft showed up, and my assistant freaked out and said, look at that. And I said, yeah, and kept it moving. It followed us around, and she ended up telling her friends. The next morning, we got ready to go out. I mentally sat down and began to disbelieve it and thought, if 2 show up, I'll believe it. So we went out, and sure enough, 2 of them showed up. The next day, 3 of them showed up the next day. He said they showed up almost by request. I always felt I had a connection with them. It all related to seeing that alien at 9 years old when it jumped to the back of me because it was startled because I had caught it. I went to a psychiatrist to ask what the hell I saw, even a spirit healer who thought my family was like into voodoo or something. And none of that was true, he said. 4 years after, I was scared to turn off the lights in the bedroom. On my mother's part, she even took me to a faith healer to say prayers and all kinds of stuff. After that, he never saw it again. So maybe that actually worked. He was then asked why he made the movie after having so many of these experiences. Kotto said that he loved the script, the original Alien script. I mean, it is an amazing script. And he was thrilled to be part of such an iconic movie. Though he and then also being an African American, he said, being African American in the 70s, being part of this like iconic movie, he's like, who would say no to something like this, no matter what. But he said that the mechanism that Sigourney Weaver throws to put their ship on auto destruct had symbols on it that he said he was actually able to decipher. It was like real symbols that they used from something with Egypt or something like that. And he said it was like he just could recognize the symbols. Though he did say that the chest bursting scene completely freaked him out so much that he couldn't talk for almost 3 days. Because what they never told the cast what was going to happen because they really wanted real reactions. So if you watch that that alien, or that scene in Aliens where, you know, the thing bursts out of the guy's chest. Um, every reaction that you see is all real. And there was a one-time thing. They could do one take and that was it. So I was like, I actually like watched how they did that and everything. And the girl gets like sprayed with like fake blood, and it's like 100% real. She's like, I'm not faking it, that part. Like none of us, she's like, in that scene, not a single person is acting in that scene. We are all actually reacting to the fact of what we're witnessing. And he started to wonder, Kodo started to wonder whether or not he wanted to like be a professional actor after that, because he said it was actually really intense, and it kind of created these like flashbacks of having these like his alien experiences that he didn't tell anybody at this point. He's like, I started to question my whole life. What kind of movie is this? This is weird. I mean, that scene was rated as one of the like worst scenes in movie history at the time. So now it's like, you know, such an iconic part, but people are like throwing up in the theaters and everything. It was really intense. I never even saw that movie until just a few years ago. So anyway, and now I love it. I think it's great. But so he said it was a turning point for him in relation to UFOs and aliens. He said, when you go through this with real life aliens, you go through psychological changes. You begin to wonder whether or not you're being followed. But he said he always felt like he was abducted, and of course he believes he had missing time. So the last thing that Vice asked him, they said, when asked what he wants people to gain from this experience, this is what Kotto said. Kotto said, we are not alone. We're not alone in the universe. If you totally westernize the idea, look at it from a supremacy viewpoint, then you'll say everyone's imagining them when it comes to these things. We can say that, but much of the world would reject that premise. We're not alone. I definitely agree with them. You know, it's just like, it's so weird. We're reading all these like even NASA, they created all these things, you know, we're SETI, search for extraterrestrial life in the universe and all this stuff. But as soon as something comes through, they're like, nope, 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 nope. And it's like, wait a minute, isn't that what you're doing? Isn't that the purpose of all this? Clearly they just want to, like, you know, it's like, oh, we're just putting it out there, but then we want to control everything about it. Most likely. I mean, maybe there's like aliens behind the scenes that are manipulating all that. So could be. Which leads us to number 2, which is a pretty short one. Space aliens are breeding with humans, university instructor says. Scientists say otherwise. Once again, now I'm not going to read this entire thing, but basically this professor at this University of Oxford in England believes that abductions are real. I think, yeah, he's a Korean guy, Young Hai Chi, who teaches Korean at the university and also claims to know what the aliens have in mind. In lectures given at the university, he says they're creating alien human hybrids, which I 100% agree too. Anyone that's abducted by aliens or believes that they've been abducted all say the same stuff. However, his conclusion, I don't agree with. His conclusion is that to fight against climate change. Like, what? I guess he believes that they're trying to create some kind of human hybrids that have better DNA that could withstand climate change or something like that. And that's what he believes. I don't really think that's quite what they're doing, but you know, I'll just go with it. At least he's coming out saying that abductions are real. And to support his unorthodox theory, Chi notes that for several decades, the number of reported alien abductions has risen. He bases his statement on the work of David Jacobs, a retired Temple University historian who has published several books on ufology and runs the International Center for Abduction Research. So, you know, I do agree with that. Now, this article is like, well, abduction cases are actually down, so people are getting abducted less. But it's like, I just think people are reporting it less. It's not like abductions are going down. It's like any survey that you do, you know, if people are not going to report. It was like, oh, you could say the same thing about seeing UFOs. It's like nowadays people don't want to report these things because the men in black. So you don't want them showing up at your door, like I've been abducted. And then all of a sudden all these things are missing, and your computer and laptop are missing, and your phone's missing. And, it's like, yeah, you don't want that. So I think that's another reason why people are scared. They're scared to have people make fun of them. And they're also scared of these kinds of things too. And they want people to talk to about it. They just don't know where to go, which is kind of why we started Edge of Wonder to begin with. We wanted to create a home for people to share their experiences where they don't feel isolated and weird and, cast out of society. It's like, hey, let's just have a place where people can share openly about these things. And Robert Earl White, if you haven't seen our interview with him, it's a phenomenal interview, and he tells his true account of when an alien, where a UFO crashed near his backyard, and literally the men in black showed up and scared his mom basically into not talking about it. And they were like, oh, it was a helicopter. But he has a lot of evidence, and a lot of people in the town all knew each other. There's actual documentation, police reports, weird metal that he still has from the craft that can't be identified. So yeah, a lot of really weird things going on there. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely check out that interview. It's a phenomenal interview. All right, let's move on to number 1 here. Fran Drescher. She also claims that aliens abducted her and implanted a chip in her hand. So this one is weird, but Fran Drescher, the actress from The Nanny, believes that she and her husband at the time, Mark Jacobson, were programmed to meet. Like, she literally said that. She believed that, like, they're probably, she thinks for these aliens that she was supposed to meet him. He told Huffington Post in 2012, he said, it's funny because Peter and I both saw aliens before we knew each other, doing the same thing, driving on the roads with our dads. I'm sorry, I said she said this. She said, yeah, she said, it's funny because Peter and I both saw aliens before we knew each other. And then they were both driving in their car with their dads when they were younger. And they both had some kind of alien experience. Drescher did add that Jacobson doesn't believe. So they have these, and she said they even have the same scars on their arms. So Drescher said that Jacobson believes that the scars didn't come from aliens, that he thinks that it was from like doing some drill bit or a cup of hot coffee or something that spilled on him. However, she believes that it's actually from aliens, and it's weird that they both had the same scar in the same place. So I don't know. I kind of do believe her in this case. She says, I know a lot of people. Well, I mean, yeah. But so with the chips, and then she also believed that, there was a chip in her hand that the aliens put inside of her, which is a really big thing. And right now, a lot of people are coming forward. And I do think that Rob and I had also a live show talking about this whole thing with the alien chips and stuff. And I do think that this is going to become a very, very important topic in the future. I think this is where the direction where a lot of things are going to go. Right now, it's like everyone's talking about UFOs and aliens, but the next step is like finding out that a lot more people are being shipped more than they realize. Everything from just everyday average people out there to Army veterans to everything in between. And I think a lot more people are going to find out that they are. And the big question is it government? Is it like some kind of black budget program stuff doing it? Is it aliens? Combination of all of it? No one really knows, but there are a lot of group of people out there who are trying to get to the bottom of what's happening and why people are being shipped. And I seriously think it's kind of like a tracking thing. I think that's why like people who move see the same things. They see the aliens, even if they move, because it's like, it doesn't matter. They're being tracked, So, and a lot of these people have missing time. Some actually remember having an alien abduction experience. So it really makes you wonder, really, what is going on with all this. But it's cool that someone like Fran Drescher came out and said this, because I think then it kind of opens up people who believes that they have chips or been abducted by aliens to feel a little bit less, scared to come out. Then, wow, Fran Drescher came out, I can come out and talk about my experiences, but not me. I mean, I actually don't think I've ever been abducted by aliens. So, but I know people who have, and some of these we're going to share their stories eventually. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoy the show. If you guys, again, have any crazy experience, any alien abduction experiences, weird stories you found, or personal stories, send it over to weirdernews@rise.tv. Love to hear it and love to put it in the show. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys out on the edge.